30, -2, section 39, which is the Climate Investments Fund. The comment is, it would be helpful if you could add defensible space and home hardening projects for high-risk communities, and also develop local plans aimed at reducing risk and fire safety. Do you plan on adding any items?
So the person asked a question about the way that we would be spending money under the cap and trade bill, and specifically around some of the recommendations coming out of our state wildfire council this fall. They've recommended a number of measures. One of the most urgent one is helping our utilities to reduce the risk of wildfire by making sure their lines are well maintained in all areas, that there's no tree debris or undergrowth that would catch on fire and therefore light the line on fire, and to do some of that clearing work and buffering work in advance. We have a bill in House Energy and the Environment that we're working on amending some of that language into so they can get going, and it's going to require them to submit, and I say them, sorry. Our utilities, PacifiCorp, PG, although they represent and have customers largely in the greater metropolitan area, so their wildfire risk isn't as much as PacifiCorp, that is Southern Oregon and Eastern Oregon. And some of our smaller utilities and our consumer-owned utilities, to begin to develop plans and submit them to our Public Utility Commission that oversees energy use, so that we make sure that all of these big utilities are doing everything they can to not become California PG&E. The good news is around defensible space, which is the space that's sort of a buffer between a house and the woods. Our land use laws have always been much more careful than California's, so we don't have the same number of homes built directly into the woods as California does. That said, my colleague that represents Ashland, Pam Marsh, and the greater surrounding areas, their biggest worry is that they do turn into a paradise, California. So we need to help many of these communities do more work to clear out debris and make sure that their communities are planned in a way when you're building new houses or perhaps doing work in a community that you're clearing stuff out of the way and not creating an excess fire risk. We will be doing some of that work with utilities in a separate bill, but within the context of the cap and trade bill, the identified priorities that, well, and we're trying to make it, I mean, the Senate's trying not to make this bill longer than it is already. They put a lot of detail. Yeah, well, okay. I guess we'll all stay tuned. But a priority within the cap and trade legislation that the Senate is working on has articulated wildfire prevention as a top priority for the state. Knowing that the Governor's Wildfire Council recommended that we start spending $200 million a year immediately to start thinning and preventing wildfire. I'd imagine this will be part and parcel of that work when we're working with local communities who are also going to be a recipient of funds.